Alright, shalom. Sorry, I had my heater blasting. Shalom, shalom. Good morning, everybody. So, well, we got a big chapter today. Our biggest one so far, anyways. Good morning, Daniel and Alicia. Good morning, Kimberly. Well, I'm gonna just jump right into this because, like I said, we've got a, good morning, Treasure. We got a big chapter right now. So, chapter 78, day 78. Here we go. Give ear, O my people, to my Torah. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, telling to the generation to come the praises of Yehovah and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done. For he established a testimony in Yaakov and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, the children who would be born, that they may rise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in Elohim and not forget the works of Elohim, but keep his commandments, and may not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful to Elohim. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They did not keep the covenant of Yah. They refused to walk in his Torah and forgot his works and his wonders that he had shown them. Marvelous things he did in the sight of their fathers. In the land of Egypt, in the field of Zoan, he divided the sea and caused them to pass through. And he made the waters stand up like a heap. In the daytime also he led them with the cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He split the rocks in the wilderness and gave them drink in abundance like the depths. He also brought streams out of the rock and caused waters to run down like rivers. But they sinned even more against him by rebelling against the Most High in the wilderness. And they tested Elohim in their heart by asking for the food of their fancy. Yes, they spoke against Yah. They said, can Elohim prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, he struck the rock. Excuse me. So that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also? Can he provide meat for his people? Therefore Yehovah heard this and was furious. So a fire was kindled against Yaakov, and anger also came up against Israel, because they did not believe in Elohim and did not trust in his salvation. Yet he had commanded the clouds above and opened the doors of heaven, had rained down manna on them to eat, and given them of the bread of heaven. Men ate angels' food. Wow. He sent them food to the full. He caused an east wind to blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought in the south wind. He also rained meat on them like the dust, feathered fowl like the sand of the seas, and he let them fall in the midst of their camp, all around their dwellings. So they ate and were well filled, for he gave them their own desire. They were not deprived of their craving, but while their food was still in their mouths, the wrath of Elohim came against them and slew the stoutest of them, and struck down the choice men of Israel. In spite of this, they still sinned and did not believe in his wondrous works. Doesn't that just boggle your mind? Therefore their days he consumed in futility, and their years in fear. When he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and sought earnestly for Elohim. Then they remembered that Elohim was their rock, and the Most High El their Redeemer. Nevertheless, they flattered him with their mouth, and they lied to him with their tongue, for their heart was not steadfast with him, nor were they faithful in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and did not destroy them. Yes, many a time he turned his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath, for he remembered that they were but flesh, a breath that passed away and does not come again. How often they provoked him in the wilderness, and grieved him in the desert. Yet again and again they tempted Elohim, and limited the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember, and just to make sure you understand that verse, it says, again and again they tempted Elohim and limited the Holy One of Israel. That's not a reference to that they were able to limit his power, but that through their disobedience, Yah promises blessing to those who obey his Torah. He promises blessing to those who walk in obedience with all their heart. But he also, those whose heart are not surrendered to him, he will not bless. He cannot give them. And since he has declared this with his mouth, that's how they limited him. Because of their disobedience and because of their lack of surrender in their heart, by his own word, he could not bless them the way that he wanted to. The fullness of the blessing that he would have poured out on them. That's how they limited him, is in that way. That's how we do the same thing. We wonder why Yah doesn't pour out blessing on us. Is because most likely somewhere in our walk, we're doing something or we're not surrendering to him in something, and it's limiting him because he's not going to go against what he's declared. He's not going to bless us when we are sinning and we're doing something that we know not to be doing, or even if we don't know, then we're not seeking it to be revealed. That's why we need to always be asking Yah, reveal to me anything that I'm missing, any sin in my life that I need to know about so that I can get rid of it. You know, these kind of stuff, we need to do that so that we don't limit what Yah can do in us and through us and for us in our walk. Amen. So, all right. Verse 42, they did not remember his power, the day when he redeemed them from the enemy, when he worked his signs in Egypt and his wonders in the field of Zoan, turned their rivers into blood and their streams that they could not drink. He sent swarms of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. He also gave their crops to the caterpillar and their labor to the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail and their sycamore trees with frost. He also gave up their cattle to the hail and their flocks to fiery lightning. He cast on them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, indignation, and trouble by sending angels of destruction among them. He made a path for his anger. He did not spare their soul from death. He gave their life over to the plague and destroyed all the firstborn in Egypt, the first of their strength in the tents of Ham. But he made his own people go forth like sheep and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely so that they did not fear. But the sea overwhelmed their enemies, and he brought them to his holy border, this mountain which his right hand had acquired. He also drove out the nations before them, allotted them an inheritance by survey, and made the tribes of Israel dwell in their tents. Yet they tested and provoked the Most High El, and did not keep his testimonies, but turned back and acted unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow, for they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When Elohim heard this, he was furious, and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had placed among men, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hands. He also gave his people over to the sword, and was furious with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given in marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. Then Yehovah awoke as from sleep, like a mighty man who shouts because of wine, and he beat back his enemies. He put them to a perpetual reproach. Moreover, he rejected the tent of Joseph, and did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Yehudah, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth which he has established forever. He also chose David his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, from following the ewes that had young. He brought him to shepherd Yaakov his people, and Yisrael his inheritance. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. Wow. Wow, man, that's... Mishpachah, I definitely encourage you sometime today to go back and read that chapter again, because you can see everything. The whole chapter is a picture in a nutshell of everything that Yah did from the time of hearing Israel's cry to even because of their sin, they went into slavery in the first place in Egypt. Their disobedience and everything, and then all the time that they spent in that, and then Yah bringing them a deliverer through Moshe, and then all the plagues that he poured out on Egypt, bringing them out with a mighty hand, bringing them into the wilderness, and yet they still would have the audacity to question, can God set up a place for dining here in the wilderness? And even though Yah could have just said, I'm not doing nothing for you, he still gave them meat, he gave them water, he gave them angels food. So I wonder what angels had to cough up. No, I'm just kidding. But he gave them angels food, manna. And he did all of this. And Israel did nothing but spit on it over and over again. And man, he just keeps showing mercy. I mean, they paid the price many times, no question. I mean, that whole generation that came out of Egypt, except for Jacob and Caleb, Joshua and Caleb, except for those two, that whole generation that came out of Israel all died in the wilderness. And Mishpachah, here's the thing I want to press on your heart to think about. I don't want to be the generation that has to die in the wilderness. I want to be the part of the generation that gets to be a part of the second Exodus. Amen? To be brought into the land. You know, we have a ministry team that's going to Israel in March. And all of this that's going on and stuff, I mean, many of you have shared with me, you know, either through PM or post or whatever, or we've talked on the phone or whatever, about how you have a desire, a hunger in your heart to go to Israel. Mishpachah, we have got to make sure that we are walking in obedience to him, not complaining, not being disobedient, not lacking in surrender. Man, we need to just do what he says to do, obey him, honor him, glorify him, keep his word, walk in his ways, seek his face on a daily basis, constantly ask him, Father, show me anything that I am doing that dishonors you or displeases you. Show me, reveal it to me. Give me a fully surrendered and broken heart unto you, and help me to fulfill Isaiah 66 verse 2. It says, on this one shall I look upon. This is Yehovah talking. On this one shall I look upon, he who is of a broken heart and a contrite spirit, and who trembles at my word. That's the kind of man, that's the kind of woman that Yehovah is looking for. That is the kind of servant or child that he wants. And that's the kind of child that he will take into the land, that will be a part of that second Exodus, that will go into the land. I don't want to die in the wilderness. I don't want to be out here in the other countries or whatever. I don't want to be where I'm at. I want to be there. I want to be a part of that end game, so to speak, that final chapters of this masterpiece of a book that Yehovah has given to us. Amen. I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the last days of being used by him to stir up Judah, to help her come to receive Messiah, and anybody else in the land and all around that were a part of Israel's natural borders. I want to be a part of that, don't you? And the only way we're getting out of the wilderness is Mishpachah. We surrender to him. Stop listening to all these people that want to dissect and question every single thing in the Bible, who want to say, oh, is that what it really means? Was that for then or now? And all this other nonsense. Stop listening to those people and read the word and do what it says for what it says, and end of story. And if there is something that you need to understand, trust that Yah will give it to you. If you are seeking the truth, he will give you the truth. You don't need man or anybody else, not me, not nobody, do you ever need to turn to or listen to for you to receive and understand how to truly walk in Yehovah. All you need is a earnest and willing heart. Jeremiah 29:13, I love to quote that verse. If you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. And Yehovah will answer you. He promises that. Those who seek him, he will hear them. He will answer them. He will lead them. He will guide them. He will direct them. That is his promise. And he says the Torah is strength to our bones and healing to our flesh. So walk in it. Obey it. Do what he says to do in it. Quit listening to all this nonsense out there that's going to keep you in the wilderness or make you like the sons of Korah. Do not end up being those who get swallowed up in the earth because you argue against the word, because you tried to say, oh, it doesn't mean this anymore, or this was for then and not for now, and all that other baloney. Don't do it, Mishpachah. Get those kind of people out of your life, because they will keep you from being to get your inheritance. They will keep you, Mishpachah, from receiving the fullness of the blessing of Yehovah. Like I read in verse 41, do not allow the enemy or anybody else to use you or to help or to make you in your walk cause Yah to be hindered in what he can do for you. Do not hinder him. Do not hold back his hand by your disobedience, by your stubbornness, by your lack of surrender, by your stiff-neckedness. Amen. But just lay at his feet on your face like you should be. Don't be like those who stand before him at his feet, pretending to be his, but yet argue over his word, argue whether they have to do this or that, argue about whether this is right or this or blah, blah, blah. Don't do that, Mishpachah. But be on your face. Be prostrate before him. Prostrate. Be prostrate before him, on your face, at his feet, before your king, and cry out to him and surrender. Because remember this, Mishpachah, like King David said, I sin against you and you alone, O Yehovah. When we sin, our sin is against him and him alone. When you argue, when you try to find a way around his word, when you try to find a reason to not keep this or do that or obey this or obey that, when you do any of that, you sin against him and you bring sin into the body. So Mishpachah, man, go read that again today. Go read that chapter. Psalm 78. Go read that chapter. Absorb it. Understand it. And especially the last of it. His mercy. His mercy. And be like Jacob. Be like Joshua and Caleb. Be the ones who get to enter into the land. Be the ones for here in the last days. For we shall not talk about when Yah's mighty hand brought us out of Egypt. Well, we will talk about how Yah, with his mighty hand, brought us back into the land in the second Exodus. Let that be the thing that we get to glorify. Let that be the thing that we get to talk about and praise Yah about. Amen. So I love you, Mishpachah. May you have an awesome and blessed day. But more importantly, Yah loves you. Shalom, shalom.